It all comes down to pipeline.
Yes, I can say CEO, but that is a lie. Like, I am a sales guy right now.
It's a momentum game. The second the momentum slows, it's twice as hard just to get back where you were.
Hey, Karl Hughes here with a special episode of Retain Trust. Over the past 2 years, I've been able to sit down with dozens of agency founders, consultants, and acquirers, and the same hard lessons just keep coming up over and over in these conversations. So today, let's go through some of the highlights and distill them into the best advice for agency growth. This will be a masterclass in agency sales and marketing, taught by the people who've actually done the work. So let's get into it.
It all comes down to pipeline when it comes to agency growth. It's both the curse and the blessing of agency model, where it's simultaneously the simplest type of business model to have, but then also is super incredibly complex because if you're not addressing your pipeline issues, everything else kind of falls apart.
The founder goes out and they get some business, and then they start to spend all their time servicing that business. They stop doing any business development work. And so the pipeline kind of just dries up to a nothing. Now, in the early days, when you're the only person working on the business, not pleasant, but it's like manageable because your costs are so low. Where I see it becoming a problem is when you've got a team of 10 that you've committed to keeping on your team.
When we're in that mindset where it's like, I'm losing sleep, can we make payroll? The work, everything that we've done prior to that exact moment shows up at the right time. You're losing sleep and you can't think, and all of a sudden, like the next day, you get 2 verbals from 2 new clients that you've been putting the work in on. That stuff just has a funny way of showing up when you need it the most. Never stop the grind.
If someone says to me, look, I really want to grow this agency, I'd love it to be this size, be this date for this reason, great. A huge part of their growth is going to be contingent on like a sales strategy that's going to enable them to do that. If then 3 months later that owner says, we're going to ease off on BD because of whatever reason, it's completely contradicting what they've said they want from this business.
There's a discipline to sales that needs to just be continually done. You're having a busy week with lots of things blowing up. So what? Go sell. You're having a great week where you hit your numbers. So what? Go sell. It's a momentum game. The second the momentum slows, it's twice as hard just to get back where you were.
If your close rate is 0.01%, you just need a massive pipeline to make a business. If your close rate is 50%, you don't need much pipeline to make a business. You should know where you stand in that spectrum. The second most common theme on this show, and forgive me because I know you've heard me say this before, you need to niche down. You've probably heard this advice 1,000 times, but the reason it keeps coming up is that almost nobody actually does it. The fear of turning away revenue, especially when you're small, is real. But everyone I've ever talked to on this topic who has focused their business on a very specific customer segment or service sees the benefits on the other side of it. The more specific you get, the cheaper your marketing, the easier your sales conversations, and the faster you can actually grow your business. But as many guests talked about on this show, you can't just pick your niche at random. You have to go after customers with intention.
The things that were very helpful for us were choosing a niche and really honing in on it and trying to find something where you can legitimately say, we are the best in the world at X. And Nonprofit Megaphone can say, we are the best in the world at Google Grant Management. We manage more Google ad grants than any other company in the world.
It's fear of missing out on revenue. It's fear of passing up on an opportunity that could become massive or it could be a great big client. It's very hard for someone that's generating just enough to pay themselves it's very hard for someone like that to say no to something. And I think that's very understandable. That mindset though, what I see, it sticks with the owner as they continue to grow the business.
So many owners get stuck in, we do a little of everything for everybody. That means I have to be involved in every single account because I'm the mastermind. I'm the smart marketing person who knows all of these different skills. And I'll kind of delegate some little tasks, but I can't delegate the whole thing because it's like, it's all so dependent on me. And so you get in this, like, I can never do enough business development to actually pick a niche and dive into it because I'm so stuck in the client delivery.
Often the niche chooses you. It's less about you being proactive and deliberate and strategically choosing what you want to do, but it's more like you do some projects and over a period of time, you're like, wow, I have this cluster of work in this space, and it makes it that much easier to win the next bit of work with a similar type of client.
People see it as being limiting, but the reality is it's empowering once you have a niche. That being said, like, you don't have to only be an expert at one thing. Oftentimes we do advise maybe you're picking 2, 3, or 4, different lanes.
Don't be afraid to niche down. We're just in a sea of sameness. And if you can really carve out a category that you can own, man, that way when someone's like, oh, I need marketing just for email newsletters, I'm going to go to Matt McGarry because he's the email newsletter growth guy.
I want to be able to tell them, yeah, I run an agency that does X for Y. If you meet anybody in that category, feel free to send them my way. And now they don't put me in the category of, oh, Karl runs an agency. Like, put you way back in the back burner because nobody thinks about that. They're like, oh, Karl runs a very specific kind of agency. And now when they do hear about somebody who needs that, it's going to be a very clear introduction because they've never heard such a specific pitch for what a company does. This next topic is very dear to me because before I started my first agency, I was a software engineer. I started Draft.dev because I was good at writing technical content. And for the first couple of years, I resisted the idea that my job was really selling. Many of my guests felt a similar thing as they grew their businesses. But the truth is that as a founder, you are the best salesperson your agency has, and you probably will be for many years. Hiring a silver bullet salesperson before you've actually figured out how to do the sales yourself and documented it almost never works. And the best founders I've talked to close deals not by pitching, but by listening.
I was a marketing growth guy and I started a growth agency. You would think that would make sense, but really that's not my job. I'm more into sales and like systems, whereas my core skill set was marketing. It took me a few years at the agency where I'm like, oh, wait, I'm a sales guy now. Like, yes, I can say CEO, but that is a lie. Like, I am a sales guy right now.
My number one caution is don't jump too quickly to having somebody do the core fundamental work that you alone need to do. I'm a very strong proponent of the founder needs to learn how to do this sales and marketing stuff before they ever hire that person. I think a lot of times we can jump quickly to saying, I'm going to hire that silver bullet person. They're just going to figure it all out. And I can count on 0 fingers how often that has ever worked.
A lot of entrepreneurs, especially my background is software engineering, we come into it and think sales and marketing is a problem I will hire for later. It's not really the fundamentals of the business, but I would say that as an entrepreneur, figuring out a sales and marketing plan that kind of works, even if it's not great, just kind of works, is your like day one problem.
General rule of thumb is, if you're under, say, 10, 12 people, you're probably still going to need to be, doing a lot of the sales efforts. At the end of the day, it's your passion, it's your vision, it's your company. Like, you're going to be the best salesperson.
I do sales still. I've done sales since the day I started, which is awesome because I talk to clients and I talk to the market literally every day. What's working, what's not working, what are you looking for, what are your pain points every single day?
The most common mistake people will make, especially first-time founders who've never done sales, is they'll jump right into their pitch. They'll ask 2 questions and then hop right into the pitch. Next, let's talk about inbound and content marketing. I built both of my businesses on content. It works, but there's a catch. Tony Wilson mentioned that we've been sold a bit of a lie when it comes to inbound, that if you simply create content, then the revenue will come. But the truth is that most marketing channels require sustained long-term efforts. It's competitive, and you often need to devote a year or more to a channel to figure out if it actually works for you. Unfortunately, many agency owners can't stomach that kind of timeline, and a lot of them hit what Joey DeWitt called the momentum trap. You post some content, you sign some clients, you get too busy, you stop posting, and everything dies down until your next flurry of activity in a few months. But when done right, inbound marketing is a huge lever for your business. We close dozens of 6-figure deals from content marketing every year, and the value keeps compounding over time.
I think we need, as agency owners, we need to start getting more comfortable with not just all inbound marketing. We've been sold a little bit of a lie on LinkedIn, which is to say, if I create content, they will come.
Sometimes is the answer, right? There's a place for inbound, there's a place for outbound, there's a place for a diversity of channels.
The content does work. Like, I'm living proof of it. Like, I'll wake up some days and I'll see 2 meetings on my calendar that weren't on my calendar, before I went to bed with people that found us.
Way back 2014, I did one podcast interview on the Rocket Ship podcast. Somebody after that reached out to me and said they loved that. Years later in 2020, I got a 1-year consulting gig out of that made more than 6 figures just from that one podcast interview.
It's not just you're making posts, but you're actually developing your ongoing talking points. They sound better once you put them on paper. You're committing it to memory. It's not like, hey, you're wasting time creating content, because you're also like making yourself smarter and sound smarter when you're having live conversations.
If I go really hard on content and engaging, I sign some clients, but then I'm doing the work. I hit my capacity. I don't post content anymore. Everything dies. And then having to build up that momentum again, that's the biggest pain. Having done 3 cycles of this.
What's so hard about marketing, especially for small businesses, is that it is probably a 12-month process to get any real results out of it that you can really point to. So many small agencies really struggle to go over the hump of like, just stick with it long enough to actually start to see results, and then the snowball builds. Now let's flip over to Outbound. If content is the slow, steady effort that takes time to pay off, then Outbound is the short-term burst of effort that has the potential to pay off really fast. Unfortunately, most agency owners either hate to do it or they do it very poorly. And one thing I've learned from people on this show is that outbound sales doesn't have to mean massive, untargeted cold email campaigns. Peter Kang just started with a couple of contacts per week and built an acquisition holding company from that pipeline. The real keys to Outbound are speaking the prospect's language instead of your own, meeting buyers where they're actually at, and if you're going to go after enterprise accounts, have multiple contacts and touch points inside each company. Finally, don't forget about phone calls. Jake Ward's story of closing his biggest deal ever in a single phone call is a good reminder that sometimes you just have to try.
Start off with look, at a minimum, let's reach out to 2 people a week. And this is when we're thick in the, agency, fires every day and you're drowning in work. But we're look, every week, just 2 people, put it down on a spreadsheet. And it's crazy because it's only 2, but you do it over every year. It's, it's over 100 touches. Over time, we're let's ramp this up a bit, make it 4, make it 6.
What you really have to understand as an entrepreneur building a sales organization, especially in the B2B space, is understand your targets. When you identify the right targets, and you understand their business, now you can start speaking their language. What challenges do you help with for your prospect? How do you do it? And what makes you different?
The way that I needed to talk about problems and challenges for my tiny little startup that was, on a sales call where I'm on a sales call directly with a founder versus pretty large company where I'm talking to a middle manager in marketing or something, totally different. I assumed everybody cares about growing the business. And I talked to a middle manager and they're like, I don't, what does that even mean?
I used to sell to freight forwarders. They're not on LinkedIn. Some of them are on Facebook, but not many. And so my cold calling conversion rate for my SDRs was the highest it's ever been because freight forwarders answer the phone. Because if you want to ship something, they are there to help you. Don't disregard any channel.
We've seen the data that if you can get 3 or more people interacting with your brand, it's exponentially higher that they will meet with you and then longer term, work with you. It's not just about reaching out to one person. It's about trying to reach out to multiple people in those organizations.
Get on a call and you're having a conversation with somebody about anything, right? You're trying to sell something, but they're pushing back and saying, I don't have budget yet, or we don't have a decision yet, or whatever. Just stop right there and say, okay, we'll come back to that when you're ready. What else is going on? Do that meeting, do the next meeting, do the meeting after that. And don't ever get frustrated because they're not going to buy something that day.
Referrals. Every agency owner loves them. They close faster, the trust is already there, and they feel effortless. But they can also be a dangerous trap because for about 75% of the agencies I talk to, referrals are their only reliable channel for new business. That's a huge problem for growth, and it makes it much harder when you inevitably want to sell the business. The right approach is to love referrals and maximize the chance of getting them, but don't depend on them too much as your only source of customers. Do great work, stay in touch with people, be generous with leads that aren't a good fit, and treat your competitors as potential partners. But build other channels as well.
a lot of agency owners sort of stumble in it. Their initial client base is usually somebody that they know, professionally or even personally that brings them in. And work is good. And then that leads to maybe another piece of business and another. But what ends up happening, you become over-reliant on referrals. Problem with referrals is you don't know when they're going to come in. You don't know who they're going to come in from. So it's really hard to predict and scale your business if you're 100% reliant on referrals.
That's great. That should happen. If that is one and only channel, as a buyer, that is extremely unattractive because that's not something that I can guarantee is going to come along with the company when the founder leaves.
When I get a lead from a founder and they're way too early to work with us, I'm like, hey, so we're not going to be the right fit for you. Here's what I'll do though. I'm happy to jump on a call with you for 30 minutes and we can just like talk this out. Those people who they're not a fit for us, oftentimes they have friends or peers that are a fit for us.
Your quote unquote competitors are your best referral partners too. I'm a big fan of having the mindset of co-opetition. It's a portmanteau between cooperation and competition.
When you do good work for somebody and that work helps them hit their goals and leads to in some way them getting promoted, when they go to a new company, you're going to be one of the first calls that they get.
Okay, let's talk pricing, because one of the easiest ways to grow your revenue fast is often just to revisit your pricing model or simply raise your prices. You hear this in lots of episodes on this show because almost all of us waited too long to raise prices. And the fear of doing so is almost always worse than the reality. One guest told me about a client who hadn't raised prices on in 7 years. And when they finally did, the client said, "I've been waiting on you to do this forever." On the flip side, a lot of agency owners customize their way to zero margin clients by saying yes to every scope change and every request just to get the deal closed. What makes pricing especially tricky in agencies is that unlike SaaS or e-commerce business models, agencies have negative economies of scale, meaning more clients means more people, which means more management overhead and more complexity in every project. So your pricing has to account for that.
The easiest way to make more money in any business is not to sell more, it's to charge more.
Instead of servicing 80 clients like you do today, service 60, but at 20% higher prices. You just made more money without adding any clients. You net lost clients, and yet you can actually do a ton for your bottom line.
Price is the biggest number. So if you can increase prices, that will have the biggest impact on the bottom line.
You start trying to become everything to everybody. And you start making all these adjustments. And what ends up happening is you get the deal done, but you've made so many adjustments at this point that there's no margin in it. You've spent time, you've spent money, you've put effort into creating this, and it's only going to work for that business.
Most industries, they have this economies of scale. If you grow, everything should become kind of easier. For agencies, it's often the opposite. It's like if you grow, you need more people. There's more clients you have to manage, management teams to build out. Signing that extra client isn't really like you're not becoming incrementally better.
The typical agency is spending between 3 to 8% of their total revenues. That's not the way it should be. What we've been doing in the past with just like word of mouth referrals is not going to get us to the next place. We need to up that to like 15 to 20%.
For our last set of topics, let's talk about standing out. There are over 100,000 digital agencies in the US alone, and just about anyone can hang their shingle tomorrow. There's effectively no barrier to entry in this space. So how do you stand out? A few things came up again and again on this show. Sometimes you have better skills or insights than your competition. Sometimes it's the quality that can help you build a moat because many agencies struggle to maintain high quality as they grow. And finally, there's a human element that smaller agencies can lean into better than our more corporate counterparts. Be real, be accessible, and just be a person. That's an advantage that anyone can use.
I don't care what your industry is. If you have more insights and provide more commentary on the bigger picture than your competitors do, when you're in front of a client, you're just going to come across as far more knowledgeable.
Totally.
Every other week, we have leadership meetings where we talk about this stuff. We also have like meetings where anybody who just wants to join, we just talk about like what's happening right now, what pissed you off this week, what what struggle your client had, what questions people are asking you. But then we can put that into, here's like a monthly report on the newest trends.
When really invested companies see our videos, they go, that looks expensive. That looks like we couldn't afford that. That exceeds our budget. And it's like, actually, it's really cheap. You just have to give a shit.
Our clients don't have the capacity to do it all themselves. AI is a really powerful tool in hands of the specialists. A CMO, they've got other things to do than sit around and play with prompts all day. And GPT is a powerful marketing tool in my hands, not that. So I think there's always going to be that market.
They always want to sound and look like the big corporate companies in their space. You're not going to be better than the publicly traded company in your space. So just be different. Like, be yourself, be accessible, be a real person. The CEO at a Fortune 500 company can't be a real person online. PR team that stops it, they got a legal team that stops it. Whereas the early stage startup can say whatever the hell they want and like use that to your advantage.
When I launched Growth Hit, it was on the back of like the growth hacker movement. I was really into like Sean Ellis and Andrew Chin and their writings and Ryan Holiday. And all of a sudden I was like in pitches against Ogilvy because they're like, oh, we're looking at an agency and a growth hacker agency. And I literally like just threw up a domain. I'm like, how am I even like in consideration? It's because that was the buzzword at the time, but it also like inspired the way we do things.
I hope going through all these insights on agency sales and growth has been helpful. If I had to distill the whole thing down to a single sentence, it would be never stop selling, pick a lane, and build a business that doesn't need you in every seat. I want to thank everyone who's been on Retain Trust so far. Every one of these clips came from a real conversation with somebody who's lived through this stuff. So be sure to check out each episode and check out the whole backlog if you want to learn more. Finally, thanks for listening. I'm looking forward to the next episode and even more learnings for the year ahead. Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.